Welcome back to episode 10 of the Opposition Podcast. I want to start by congratulating you, Rukshan, on music that was half decent.
Yeah, this music's been going pretty good. I think people are happy with this music, so I'm pretty wrapped with myself that I finally managed to find a song that no one's complaining about too
Was that
much.
Sri Lankan?
That was not Sri Lankan.
Oh, that's why
music,
it was good.
But I might put some Sri Lankan background music next to it.
No,
What do you reckon?
viewers. Maybe Israeli.
Israeli music, okay.
So today is a special episode, our last one before we go on tour. Next week we're actually live from New Zealand.
Well, that's the plan anyway, to come do this show from New Zealand, so that'll be quite interesting.
But we should actually call it by its traditional name, North Korea.
North Korea, that's right. We are going to North Korea.
Next week.
I don't think Chairman Ardern is she in power still? No, she's not.
You mean the WEF is still in power?
Yeah, that's it. Chairman Hipkins is there right now.
If you were going to take me with you, would they ban me? Or not?
Hold on, why is that guest? You can tell this guest is related to me because he's butting in.
Nobody told me not to ask questions.
100%, guys. Look, welcome to the 10th episode of the Opposition Podcast. And like all the other episodes, we are still talking about Avi Yemini. Perhaps one day we'll get to talk about myself, but for now, we're going to be focusing on Avi, and that's today's special guest. Is actually a very integral part of the man Avi Yemini here. It's his father, Zephaniah. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
He's the man that was butting in before, so you see where Avi gets it from. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you.
Why did you decide to come on this podcast with us?
It wasn't. He asked me, and I said yes.
I want to point out though, I'm looking forward to your dad also coming. Let's make it. This was all your idea, and I've been sitting here. My wife is actually watching this now, and I think she's shaking, thinking, "What is going to happen in this episode?"
No, look, I mean, I think this is, from all the episodes we've done, this is probably one of the most interesting ones, and I'm so excited that you're here, Zephaniah, to chat with us about this person here, because I think a lot of people. So if you're watching, guys, in the comments, normally we hear from Avi himself, but if you want to learn a little bit about Avi from his dad, drop it in the comments, put a Q and a question mark, and just tell us what you want to hear, and we'll put the questions to the man and see what his response is.
And one thing you'll know about my dad, you'll learn by the end of the night, is he's not afraid to say what he thinks. He's often wrong, but I think that trait I got off him.
I don't have to interject with every time I disagree with something someone says.
You can do whatever you want. This is a free country.
Okay, all right, fine. Okay. No, that's okay.
Do you agree that you're often wrong?
Not as often as you think.
I think the question on people's minds is 17 kids. Mm-hmm. Why?
Look, for many, okay, that's a nice segue into something that I'm interested in talking about. I was brought up totally non-religious, anti-religious. After my father died and I was 18, I was looking, as people were in the 60s, it was sex, drugs and rock and roll, but there was also searching for something different. That's when the hippies and the yippies, all these people came. That's when it all started. So I eventually was looking, and I found ultra-Orthodox Judaism. I didn't realise that at the beginning, but I got into it. And I remember someone asking me once at the beginning, "What, you believe in God?" Because I started doing various rituals. And I said, "I never actually thought about it. It was the community, it was other things. I didn't think about God." Why did I tell you all this? So part of the thing was, when it came time to get married a few years after that, I met my wife-to-be at that stage 3 times, and then we got engaged, and then a month later we got married. That's the way it worked. So the children was also just an extension of that. You got married, you had children, everybody did their thing. Their roles are very defined, gender roles are very defined. So she just, being fertile, she just kept having kids, and that was it. We didn't think about it. It's not that we decided to have 17 kids. We just had kids because they kept coming out.
Now, when he says he's from ultra-Orthodox, I think this is where we play that video. I think I'm turning down, there's a sound coming out of that. Is that this remote, Rukshan?
Oh, no. I'll set it up. I'll play the video.
All right, let's play the video.
I'll play the video, yeah.
Because I think this puts into context how you look so different, and we'll go into that. Press play. Let's watch this. It's from a documentary called "Welcome to the Wax Family" that they filmed over 5 years when we were kids.
And it's been shown on Qantas and everything.
It's being shown on Qantas.
Yes, even very recently.
We're going to cancel it.
It's very...
It's another reason to boycott Qantas.
It was a very, very popular thing. I had kids that people watched it. They were in Sweden and things, and people saw it across the border because it wasn't shown in every country, but it was all over the world.
Wow.
It's like going to the zoo. A lot of people
in fact,
visit
I had a
Melbourne
daughter
Zoo.
in Austin, Texas, at the university doing outreach.
Yeah.
And some of the students there, it became a cult movie in Austin, Texas. It's one of the biggest university campuses in the States. And people knew the words by heart.
Wow.
Like literally by heart.
I'm starting to understand where the mass shooting is.
Cut. All right, let's play
Press
this video.
play.
Let's press play.
You didn't eat yet? When Mummy was here, did you eat or not? I saw you here this morning. You did eat breakfast. That's not true. Okay, no more breakfast now. You eat all that up. You eat all this up. You eat it all up now.
There we are.
Wow. I'd like them to be more observant than me. But I wouldn't like someone that is actually very observant but a really horrible person. And on the other hand, someone that's very, very nice person and good to people and kind and everything like that, but isn't observant is also not good. So I want a combination of the two. That is our ideal.
Can you leave?
Whatever Mummy says, there's one boss here running the show. That's Mummy. Okay?
Organising an event like this means the family's buses have to be sent on ahead so the children can be ferried home
That was
at the
our
end of the
family
evening.
car. I used to go to parties in that.
As soon as my father comes back.
Do you know 42? Who's 42? That's me.
This was the 1 week he had to do the washing. There we go. So that was a taste of, I think that was a real taste of our family.
Absolutely. In fact, it annoyed me. That film I found to be very accurate, and we didn't interfere with it. And people complained that it was like a whitewash of the family, but I don't think it was at all. I mean, you see me there in that clip where I'd forgotten that I was on camera. I got caught.
Welcome to the Wax Family. You can go look it up. It's an old film.
Is it on YouTube?
No, not YouTube. It was SBS. It was Film Australia made it. It was featured on SBS for a while. But if you look up "Welcome to the Wax Family," you'll be able to find it. It's an hour. It was filmed over
you
5.
You can actually find it if you look it up.
Yeah. You have to pay for it.
Yeah.
You guys don't have a copy of it that you can release?
No,
to the
I
public?
got one that I can secretly share, but no, I won't because the producer will get upset. But it was filmed over 5 years. They followed us to school or whatever. They became part of our kind of family. But I think the question in many people's minds is, look at you there, chasing after a bunch of kids, 17 kids for those that are at home. This guy here had 17 kids. I have 2 of my own. Rhonda has. We have 4 at home, and mental health issues with me stem from that. Imagine having 17, and imagine, Rukshan, for a second, it's 17 times me. Am I the loudest?
No, but you're not exceptional. You're just
Hold
normal.
on, that's harsh.
No. I meant noise-wise. You're not exceptional at all.
So how did you go from that to what we see in front of us now?
Well, with all the years that I was in the cult, 50 years.
You call it the cult.
Yeah. What's the cult?
He calls it the cult now.
I call, just so we're completely clear, I'm not anti-Jewish or anything like that, but I consider all seriously performed organised religions, whether it be Jews, Catholics, any group that does it really seriously and takes it seriously, I believe they're all cults, in fact. They all have the major components of cult. There's usually a cult leader, even if they pretend there isn't.
You were our cult leader at home, though. When we grew up.
Because that's part of what got me out of it in the end, because I came to the conclusion that all the child sexual abuse stuff that happened at the schools and the way it was treated and the way it was covered up and the way they reacted was all to do with the theology as well. That means you've got the leader who's unassailable and perfect, like a little god. And everything flows from that. So everybody has to listen. Nobody can make their own moral judgments about things. That's something that's in all the cults. And when I say cult again, I'm including organised religions. I'm not talking about Jonestown or anything like that. they all have this thing of the morality is essentially outsourced. Even if they'll claim it's not, it is. So when the Catholics, when it happened, also you shun the victims, you shun their families, all the stuff. It's all exactly the same. We were good friends. My son Manny and me. We became good friends with the Fosters.
Yep.
Anthony unfortunately died, but Christy should live a long life. And in the beginning, when I first met them, it was at the.
Who are they for most people aren't involved in that one?
I think they got I think her husband got an AO or something. He died a few years ago. I think got a state funeral. They had 2 daughters raped by the famous Risdale, who was accompanied to court by the famous Pell. Just to put all these things in context. And in the beginning, when we first met at the Victorian Parliamentary Inquiry, I figured there'll probably, there'll be about 30% similar and there'll be 70% or 60% will be cultural differences. In the end, we found it's about 99.9% the same. The cultural differences are almost nothing. It's just change of words. But the concepts, the way you react, the way you protect the institution, the way you don't look after, even though you protest vehemently that the first thing we care about is the children, the safety of the children. Everybody says that. When I hear that, I know they're lying straight away, because people that really do it don't say it like that. So these are all the reasons of why, when I saw ultimately what the religion's doing after this happened, I mean, how did it happen?
Talk into the mic.
Sorry.
Or move it to you.
And this is about child sexual abuse.
Yes.
Child sexual
Within
abuse
the-
in Yeshiva Centre
in the
that
okay.
happened 25 years ago or something like that. At the time, I, as all the other parents, we all did nothing. We allowed the guy to get away and be kicked out of Australia, which is what happened. I went a bit further than others because they didn't even want to fire the guy, and I insisted if they don't fire, we organised a meeting of parents and we were going to go to the police. In the end, they backed down 1 minute before the meeting was organised, and they did fire the guy and he got sent overseas. When he got out of jail, eventually he went to Israel, then he went to America and he got caught in America. When he got out, when he was going to be out of jail in America, one of his victims from Australia decided, he's getting out of jail. The person then decided to go forward to the police, went forward, extradition, everything like that. What was the train of...
Why you went from looking like that to you now was the original question?
Yes. So I can't quite remember. Anyway.
You're looking for someone to blame for it.
No, I'm not looking for anyone to blame.
The cult. So wait, when you
Let me just cult. I mean, I just saw the reaction. I was going to describe my reaction when I first heard. How did I hear then? Manny rang up to me once after this sort of, we knew now about an extradition in people, things are moving. Things are moving. He hadn't yet decided, but Manny had decided he was very good with the media because he'd worked for the Anti-Defamation League, so he knew how it works and he knew who to speak to.
You got to lie.
I'm not saying that. I'm
not talking about him. I'm just saying that's how you work with the media.
Okay, look, I've got no idea.
You tell them what they want
to hear. But anyway, he came to me and he said to me...
You say cult.
I'm thinking of going public with what happened to him.
Yeah.
And what I thought was public means talking about it. I didn't think what he actually did mean, which was being on the front page of The Age in a couple of weeks. But the first thing I thought about was just even the way I thought, the idea that he's going to go public, the first thing I thought was, I've got girls to marry. This is going to be a problem.
As in you've got girls that you need to still get married.
That's
daughters.
Correct. And the
people
whole
don't
thing
speak your language.
Sorry.
And that's a community issue.
That's a community issue.
Exactly.
And knowing
Yeah.
that we would then be knowing that what I was doing was going to be a problem, because I mean, he's asking me, is it okay? So, and I realised what it would be. It would cause big ructions and everything like that. And I immediately thought of that. That was my first thought. And my second thought, within a couple of seconds, was, if it's that important to him, how can I say no? I've got to go along. And so that's it. Now, why did I say all that?
Because you're saying that then I'm assuming the backlash from that is what eventually led.
Seeing that then opened up for me to see how people would really react. So that means all the religions talk about being nice to people and thinking about people, all the wonderful words. But when push came to shove and it was the institution as opposed to this family or this person or this group of people, It's not a question. And that's what really got me. And I was even told at one stage when I was saying, but this is immoral. No, the morality is, and it's in all the religions. I've spoken to other people in other religions. If the religious leaders, the rabbis, the priests, if what they tell you is God's word, that's morality. You think it's not moral? That's your problem. Now, I can't accept that because I saw where it led.
Yeah.
I saw the bullshit.
Fair enough. I think in Australia, like with your story and especially with like the Catholic Church and stuff, we see this being openly discussed.
Yeah.
One of the things I've seen is with a lot of the Eastern religions, especially, I think this stuff is going on as well.
100%.
It's happening on
Exactly.
It's happening on a very large scale, but we don't understand that in a way that where with the Catholic Church, at least the way the West has exposed those things, we openly discuss it.
Yep.
But in the East, like I fear for what's actually happening in those countries and also in the institutions here as well. I have no evidence of any of this, but I just have an inkling that there is this kind of stuff going on as well, and it's very protected.
100%.
Kind of like what you're saying, because the community is afraid to speak up about it.
I'd actually put money on it. I'm not a betting man. I only bet when I'm 100% sure. But I'd bet on this. Every religion, mainstream, serious religion, that means the ones that are really practicing it, not once a week, but on a daily basis, anyone that you haven't heard in that particular region of some problem, I'm not going to name religions, but every one of them, I'm highly suspicious that they've got really big problems.
Is it not an issue, though, of powerful institutions? Because if you look at that era that we're talking about where all that offending was happening, it was happening across many institutions.
100%.
Government institutions, foster care.
Everywhere.
Any institution where there was power.
Army, police, hazing, all that sort of stuff.
So why do you think it's a religion thing?
But the religion is like what you touched on before, this whole kind of moral
Well,
They
morality.
play the moral card.
Well, see, that's the problem.
But
And
that's
people used to say
abusing
to
the
me,
religion. That's abuse of the religion. That doesn't mean there's a
100%.
fundamental issue with the religion.
Yeah, but I think it took like so long for Catholics to accept what happened in their church. Like it's only now.
Yeah, but that's human nature to protect your institution. Especially if your whole life is your religion, you're going to protect you. You're going to want to protect it, and you're going to want to pretend it's not true.
There's a problem with that, though. A car club, they're selling membership, they're selling love of cars. So people go out once a week, once a month, and they have a car meeting and they all enjoy themselves. If someone there is immoral, as long as they don't bring a fake car, that would be the bad thing there. Everything else is fine. We don't look at his private life compared with this. Here he comes along that. Religion, what's it selling? One of the things it's selling is morality. It's not selling science anymore. It's not selling social knowledge particularly. It's selling morality. And it says, rationality and intellectualism can't get involved in morality. By the way, there's some...
But I'm not arguing with you on that. I agree but that is a corruption of the religion as opposed to the religion itself being corrupt.
No, I would say that
It's humans involved.
Well, that's an inbuilt part of every religion.
But I don't think
once you have
it's
a
inbuilt.
structure and a leader and everything like that, I agree, it's human nature. But I mean, what does that mean? Ultimately, you're out there preaching morality,
But
and
if
you're
you
doing the
believed,
opposite of it.
if you believed in the scripture of it, if you had faith in the God and all that, and everything you learnt and you preached and you forced upon us as kids,
Correct.
if you believed that, it doesn't matter what everyone else was doing, you would still be practicing it now. If you believed in God, if you believed in everything that you taught us and you forced us to do as kids, no matter what the community did to you, which I agree, people acted really badly.
Yep.
But you would be would still believe in it today.
No, well, the problem is that I started to connect. That was part of my going out. Very slow. It happened over a period of years. It didn't happen in one day. First, I went away from that cult, but still ultra-Orthodox, keeping the Sabbath, keeping the dietary laws, everything like that. It was only slowly. And then I eventually made the thing. But part of it was seeing this lack of morality, and I connected it with the theology because I thought the theology was an integral part. It set it up for this to happen. Just like we've said now. Rukshan agrees that it's in many of the religions.
Rukshan often agrees with rubbish.
No. Like I think it is. Like
That's right.
I definitely think it is.
Exactly.
I just think.
What do you think? What do you think?
No, like in all religions, like that I see, especially the ones where, like in the Eastern religions, like let's say Hinduism or Buddhism, and even Islam.
He's got a tiptoe around that.
No, I'm just saying in the East.
He doesn't want to die.
I mean, by the way, I'm not anti-Muslim
No.
and anti-Islam as well, but
Yeah.
I would just say even Islam.
He's tiptoeing. He's careful. He's smart. Rukshan's actually smarter than he looks.
No, with all
he
the-
might
with-
have a darker complexion than us.
With all those religions, like I see this as a problem as well potentially, but I see it because the communities are afraid to speak about, like it's not a part of the culture speaking about these things.
Well, I'm not arguing all that. I'm not arguing all
Yeah.
that. Did you hear what my question was to Dad?
What was the
I
question?
have daddy issues.
Yeah.
So as kids, as you could see in that video,
Yeah.
we were forced upon this religion was forced upon us. And I hear everything and I understand all the hurt and I understand everything you say about morality, people that pretend to be moral or but then at the end of the day,
God.
But then at the end of the day, your excuse for leaving it is because people acted badly. But that's not the ideology that was bad. You're not saying that the faith was bad. You're saying that the system.
No. Once I got into it, then I started examining certain texts which are not universally accepted.
Why didn't you examine them for 20 years while you made
Because
us
I was
do
in
it?
the cult. That's the way it works. I actually looked up some stuff about. I wanted to see because a lot of people don't really understand what cults are, and they look on. They have to sort of look wacky. Like one of the things brought the example of Tom Cruise. You have to be wacky and do wacky things. No, it's not like that at all. These people look the most conservative things, and yet it's a cult.
For the record, I think it's all wacky, but I thought it was wacky when I was 13 and you kicked me out of home for thinking it was
Okay,
wacky.
You are correct. What can I do about that?
I'm a
now?
little bit triggered. No, I'm not triggered.
Let's say
Actually,
I'm coming on this show
I-
as payback to you.
no, this is
For what I did
you're
wrong.
This is
And
public therapy.
I'm getting questions as well. Lots of questions for Dad.
Oh, go on.
Yeah, so I'll just pull some.
Go
up.
on.
Give me-
This is
give me-
this is public
No,
therapy.
Is this therapy?
Let me add just one more little thing
Yeah, go
about
for it.
in answer to your question about me. Once I started questioning all sorts of questions that was sitting at under the surface in the mind all the time. An intelligent person doesn't just not have the questions. They have them, but they put them to the side. So one of the questions that came forward very forcefully in the end, because it has a certain thing of similar. I mean, people who were in the Holocaust, I'm not comparing myself to a Holocaust survivor, people in the Holocaust sort of lost everything. Their whole society disappeared and they went somewhere else, okay? So that's what happened to me. So I was able to understand that. So I started asking the question, where was God in the Holocaust? And this is, in fact, what a lot of the Holocaust survivors did at the time. And that's why many of them became from totally religious. They did exactly what I did, and they became totally non-religious or anti-religious.
I feel like that's just a justification to yourself. You
No.
Even if it's
Absolutely.
subconscious, you think.
1 second.
I need
Rukshan, I don't lie. I try
No,
not to lie.
I didn't say you're lying. I'm saying it could be a subconscious.
I understand Avi's point as well. He's trying. I think what he's trying to say is all this bad stuff happened within the institution and the people around the institution. But how does that change your relationship with what you believe and God, which wasn't necessarily involved in those bad things happening?
Well, okay, I'll give another example then.
Yeah.
The cult leader who is within the cult compared to God, very similar. The question was, in the cult, he's considered as like God, omniscient. He knows everything. He can do everything. So my question was, and that was a question that no one has an answer to. Did he know? Because they said he knew everything. He used to answer. I said it in the Royal Commission. I gave it as evidence there. When my ex-wife once had a growth on a finger, we went to the doctor and he wanted to do a biopsy. He booked her in, and we always used to ask the cult leader before doing anything like that, an operation. We didn't get an answer. We checked with the secretary. Yes, it's gone in. He gave it in again. There was no answer. So we cancelled the operation. She didn't have the operation. Okay, nothing happened. There was no problem. But he knows everything. That means he never examined or saw it, but you believe that he somehow spiritually knows. So my question became, and I asked many people, did the cult leader know about the sexual abuse going on 25 years ago or not? So with Pell and these other people, he didn't know. But this is a guy they claim about him. His own followers claim he knows everything. So if he knew and did nothing, well, he didn't exactly act very morally. And if he didn't know, it means the whole thing's a lie. He doesn't know everything.
But
Which to you would have been obvious. Well, I'm saying how all these things are connected. That means
convenient,
once I
though.
started dissecting the things, the relationship with the cult leader involved also an analogy with God. Because that's the way you've got to understand. Cult followers look at it like that. Some of them, if you looked at the adoration that I don't know, Pell he died recently, yeah, Pell?
Mm.
So the adoration some people were talking about is if nothing happened. Because
he was never convicted of anything. So,
well, no,
anyway,
he was convicted and then had it overturned. That's slightly different. And
convicted and overturned means you're still innocent. But read those comments because we're going to keep going about this.
I'll get to the comments.
And I've got real.
Did I answer your question yet or not yet?
I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't think there's an answer to the question per se.
I think that everything you're saying still feels like.
You're right. It's actually an emotional thing, and in fact, he's not even religious in asking this question. Imagine what the religious ones are saying.
I mean, someone could go through what you went through and go the opposite way as well, and become even more religious. And
it would be difficult.
I mean, as in like
it could be. I mean,
yes.
It happened to Holocaust survivors as well. You're right.
Yeah,
it did happen. These things are very analogous. Really bad situations which go one way or another. So I'm sorry. So what did you just?
No, this is Ben. You just jumped into our camera.
He wants a close up of my dad.
Benji wanted to be in the shot. I'll pull up some questions here.
Yeah.
One of them was, did Avi have a TV in your bedroom growing up?
Absolutely
there was no TV at home.
There was one
no
TV,
TV
only much later.
This goes.
Yeah.
This goes
and
to
it had
the
a
question.
sign, I used to have to put a sign on it again to show so that other people would see.
Yeah.
It had a sign on it saying this is only used for family and educational videos.
So what does that mean? So you have a family of 17, a lot of young kids.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up. I came home after school. I watched TV. What did these guys do when they came home?
They played. We lived across the road from the school. You could get into the school, which had basketball courts.
Yeah.
Without crossing a road, so they were able to do it from very young on.
But no TV. Like did they watch Play School? That was education.
No.
No, we watched. You used to get the videos. You used to get from the library the videos. So we watched
educational
Steve
ones.
Irwin, Crocodile Hunter, before anyone even knew it in Australia.
Yeah. Oh, that was educational.
That was
it's like learning about animals. We got a little.
Your dog heard about Steve Irwin.
We got a dog.
He's
in the
got his-
studio as
he's
well.
got his
If you would have had a picture now, you would have barked, and he barked even just from the name.
My dad's given up on all 17 kids. He's got a new favourite child called Billy.
Billy,
it's a dog.
Maybe we'll show Billy later.
This is a guy that hated dogs. So there's so much to unpack about this.
It was unacceptable
You
to have a
hate
dog.
No, 2 years ago, I'm going to listen tonight on this show in front of the world. I'm going to call you on your bullshit. 2 years ago, you came to my house, and I have a cavoodle. You know Winnie?
Yes.
Yeah. Cute little thing sleeps in my bed. It's the cutest fluff ball. You love Winnie now. And you came to my house and visited, and you weren't religious by then as well. You were like you are now. A couple of years ago. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 3 years ago. Winnie just turned 3. So in the last 3 years, you were not religious. And then you came in, and Winnie came up to you and he's like, oh, get that gross thing away. Like, don't give me the germs of it.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, really?
Well, you've done a full 360 then because you love this little dog that you bought in.
He kisses it on the lips. He kisses
but it's
Billy.
Billy, yeah.
Do you want to show us?
I've never kissed a dog before on the list, but I used to have it.
Billy, you have.
Is Billy, yes. But before that, I don't
You
believe
didn't
I
even
ever
let
did.
a dog touch you.
I understand, but I didn't. I had 2 Dobermans when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
By the way, this is an interesting story because it shows some of his extremism. If he's extreme, he's not extreme,
No,
but if he were extreme,
That's going to be taken out of
That's gonna be
context.
taken.
That's you put him on the spot there. That's good.
no,
Go on,
okay. My mother adopted a stray dog once called Butch, but he wasn't allowed in the house, and I didn't particularly like him. He was very scraggy and everything like that. My parents used to go away travelling overseas quite a bit, and once they were away, and I was on my own in a 3-story huge house on my own. So I don't know how, I don't remember the thought process. I bought a dog, a Doberman Pinscher puppy. They came back and they said, no way, it's you or the dog. So I packed up, just like what happened to you. I packed up and went to live in Byron Bay. It wasn't Byron Bay of today. I was a surfer.
Yeah.
It was a surfing place, but it had an abattoir there. It wasn't a fancy town. It was a real Australian hick town.
Yeah.
And that's what I did.
Well,
so
you're a surfer.
I'm sorry?
well, my old man was a surfer when he was young.
I'm learning a lot of things. I'm really glad that we're doing this.
To read those questions, you had more questions.
I had
for me?
another- questions.
So that's 1 second. How did it? What was this? What was the original question though? About dogs?
Something about
TVs, like what these
Oh,
guys
TV,
when they're growing
right.
up.
No, hold on. Because we're calling out bullshit. We didn't have a TV. You want to know the funny thing? Is he had a TV in. Oh,
See, this is-
are you going to deny this? There was no
I'm not gonna
TV in
deny it,
your
but
exercise room?
It's slight. You're giving it out of context with the
Give us
slant,
context.
which is bullshit.
Give us context.
The context is we had to do exercise.
Yes.
And you needed a TV.
And we used to do originally walking, but that became problematic with dogs in the area. And also what really bugged me was people would, from the community, would go, we saw you walking with your wife.
dogs. He hated dogs. And by the way, he used to walk with a stick. That's how much he hated dogs. And
It wasn't a matter of hating, it was a matter of preservation.
he walked with a stick because he loved.
And they used to cross the road, the
Were they
big
just
dogs.
roaming around the back then? Were they the dogs?
No, people on, you see it
Cavoodles.
now
He
even
hated
there.
cavoodles. He was ready to hit him.
Not
Go
a
on.
cavoodle. Anyway,
So why did you have a
we
TV?
needed exercise, and I decided I was sick of people making comments about me walking with my then wife. So we decided we bought steppers and all the equipment for home, and we used to put it on, and we only used to watch it while we were actually on the thing. It was in a separate part of the house. The kids thought that was hypocritical.
I kind of understand.
How is
why.
it?
Oh, I understand
How
them
is
as
it
well.
not hypocritical?
Yeah.
We only had a TV that had a big sign on it. There was no TV. They had Foxtel. You had Foxtel. I used to watch through the keyhole without sound because he had these he had all the headphones so that we wouldn't even hear him watching. They would watch Foxtel. Hypocritical.
Yeah.
Is it not hypocritical?
Yeah, I understand.
Oh,
why.
I
I
love that the
understand
world
now
is
why he left the
witnessing.
cult.
He left the cult.
I'll bring up the next question.
He left the cult well before that. Come on.
I got
Don't
one
use that.
from Daniel Dalhuntley.
Daniel is a
any
rebel.
advice on working with Avi, Mr. Wax? Even myself, I'll ask you. Any advice on working with this guy?
I need a bit more specificity, a bit more specific as to what the question is.
How did you survive almost 38 years is what they want to know. How are you still alive?
But in relation to you or in general?
Obviously in relation to me. They want to know because these guys, Daniel's worked with me. So Daniel it works at Rebel. He's worked for a couple of years at Rebel and things are getting tough for him. Rukshan.
Okay.
Rukshan's got grey hairs coming up.
It wasn't simple, and we actually had a period in time when we weren't happy with each other, to put it that way. But very thankfully, we eventually made peace, and we're actually good. And he's probably stop it, please. Hey, shh. If we have to, we'll take him out. We're good now.
Yeah.
But he wasn't the most troubled kid necessarily, apart from the fight that we had at the end, which was all related to the it's a long story, but that's a separate story. Apart from that, he wasn't necessarily the most difficult or he wasn't anything special. Yeah. Look, we had a girl and then 6 boys, and that 6 boys was pretty full on.
Yeah.
It was very full on, and he wasn't the most difficult out of the 6.
Yeah.
You read the book.
Yes.
What did you think about the book?
I thought it was fantastic.
Does it ring true?
Yeah, completely.
What was your favourite part in the book?
Look, I can't really pick out like all good books. It's all good in my opinion.
Did you learn anything new in the book that you didn't know beforehand, or you kind of already knew most of that? From his younger days, especially.
Oh yeah, some of the stuff about the drugs and the way it progressed and everything. I didn't know all that, but I mean, it was all matter of fact and it was interesting, but I didn't know some of that. Correct. Exactly how he got into it and this and that and the getting out.
Yeah.
But he wasn't the most difficult kid.
Yeah.
No. I mean,
Who's your favourite kid?
Sorry?
Who's your favourite child? Besides for Billy the dog, obviously.
Now or then or what?
I know with you it's different. Right now, who's your favourite kid? They're all watching. Who's your favourite kid? Not to put you on the spot. Who's your favourite kid?
Look.
Who's your favourite?
I wouldn't look at it in that respect. I've got...
He's like he should be a
I've got
politician.
one
He's
person
dodging
that...
the question.
No. I'm answering the question very directly, but not the way you want it. There's one kid that I don't speak to, but apart from that, I speak to everybody else. Some closer, some less close.
Who's your favourite?
No. I can't. I don't.
They're not watching. They're not going to watch it. Who's your favourite?
You just said a second ago they were
I
all
was
watching.
lying.
You were lying. Well, but it's not.
You
that's
were
not the
about to
reason.
answer it till I said
No,
that.
it's not the reason. I can give you about each kid good points and not good points.
Do you know? All right, very diplomatic.
No, it's not intended to be diplomatic. It's intended to be the truth.
Just on kids, I know 17 kids, and kind of a roundabout way to discuss an issue that's happening right now.
Yes.
In our country.
Yes.
We're always talking about cost of living crisis and all this kind of
Yes.
stuff. How did you as a family manage with that many children?
Okay.
And do you have any tips for people watching at home with what we're going through?
Yeah.
Wear a
Some of
condom.
them I do and some of them I don't.
Wear a condom.
Some of them are related to the very large number. So
Yeah.
with relation to school fees and everything like that, they were pretty fair, but they didn't know how to do it. So they would essentially ask me, and I gave what I could give because they didn't know how to evaluate. Like 10 kids they might have known still, or 8 kids they might have known, but 17 they didn't have anything to compare it with to know what to ask me for.
Are you laughing because the numbers are so great?
It's just funny how the institutions just gave up 7
Well, they
kids,
did. That's right. I mean, well, what could they
What do
do
you-
apart from that?
Yeah.
And especially if I would have fought with them afterwards, but I didn't. They were fair, and this was fair. And as far as buying stuff goes, we used to buy, as is in the Welcome to the Wax family, we discuss it. We used to buy by the case only, and we used to buy according to the season. And we often checked with family friends that had 4 kids, let's say, and we used to spend as much on food as they did. And we had tons of food. You agree with that?
Yeah, there was food was always in
Food
an
was
abundance.
always
no
good
TV.
quality and tons
Besides
of it.
for in the exercise
because
room.
we used to buy by the case. So fruit and vegetables were all taken care of like that. So we didn't spend more than other people. One of the butchers was very nice to us and gave us. We used to buy once a year. At one time of the year, they want to clean everything out, get rid of all towards Passover. They want all the non-Passover stuff out, and it's all new stuff. So I used to buy even a few $1,000s worth, essentially meat for the year. They were interested in getting rid of all of it. No discussion. This, that, whatever they had, I'd buy it all. And we did very well. It was a good price. They kept it in their freezer for me very nicely. It was really nice of them. Some of these people were Holocaust survivors or children of Holocaust survivors, and they took into account a large family because they remembered that still from Europe or the story about it. So they went out of their way to help us in that respect. So that's taken care of. Meat, fruit and vegetables were bought just regular but by the case. And what else? Clothing. My ex-wife was an expert at. Took her a while to work out that when in Australia, when it's written 50% off or 90% off, it really is true because overseas they do the same thing. Probably in Sri Lanka as well. They have sales all the time. They put it up 100% and then reduce it 50%. But here in Australia, it really was like that. And she'd know exactly when to buy when it got to the minimum before they ran out or whatever. And that's how we did clothes and everything. And the kids were always well-dressed, clean, well-fed, all that sort of stuff.
I find it fascinating because today, most family units are about 2 kids maybe.
Yep.
And a lot of the perception of the media coverage is it's people are going to struggle with the cost of living, and I understand, I get that, but you almost have this kind of can-do attitude with 17 kids. You just got to make it happen, or is it?
Part of it is you put your finger on something because, in fact, a lot of my kids do have the can-do attitude. My ex-wife had it. I've got it. He's got it. And quite a few of the kids have the can. If there's a challenge, you don't look at it as a challenge that maybe I can do it, maybe I won't be able to do it. Once you take it on as a challenge, you do it and you make it happen. It's a way of thinking. Yes?
It's true. I think that is a thing that we got from my parents. It's like if you want to watch TV and not let the kids watch TV, you can do it in the exercise room.
Well, that's an example, a silly example, but it's an example. But everything is possible to do, essentially.
We're talking about the impossible. I remember something about the Medicare cards.
Yeah,
Didn't they have to change the system or something because of you?
No, it didn't change it, but it caused... What happened was we went to the old Goombaya Park once.
Yes. Oh.
And Goombaya Park had a
It's
rule.
called Goombaya World now.
Whatever. They had a rule, one family, there was an entrance fee of one thing.
Yeah.
So we came there, I had the bus, the big white bus, and we arrived there and...
But remember, it's an hour and a half drive. Just tell people because
An
it was an hour and a half drive there with how many kids? 10 kids in the van?
Something like that, whatever. And because each Medicare card could only have 9 people attached to it. You could only have, that means there was obviously a IT, a computer limitation that you could only have the thing. So 17 kids and 2 parents, we needed 3 cards, okay? So I go to them, but they want to see the Medicare cards. It's not all one family. So I show them 3 Medicare cards. Oh, that's 3 different families. I said, no, I explained to them what I've just explained to you. Yeah. They refused to let us in. So I said, okay, I'm going to complain about this. And we left and drove back to Melbourne. We didn't go in.
Wow.
And
I was in that bus.
Yeah.
In the end,
think about that as a children, because he's never thought about it from the child's perspective.
That's correct.
We drove an hour and a half, excited. Gambaya Park was the best trip that we. It's not like Gambaya World now. Yeah. It was actually fun.
No,
back then.
I went to Gambaya Park many times.
But Gambaya Park, you remember it was good fun. It was so much fun with the kangaroo. It was so. It's not like now. I've taken my kids to Gambaya World.
They can't understand why you wanted to go.
No, Gambaya World now is a water park, but it's crap. Like it's a crappy.
Be careful what you say. I don't know. It's maybe defamation or something.
You can't defame a company that has more than 10 people in it. Trust me.
Oh, really? All right.
I've been through defamation a few times, but it's crap.
Anyway, we got out of it about a year's worth of vouchers. I don't think we even used them all up. There were so many. And there was
I think Emma apparently still has the vouchers. I want to now take him to Gambaya World.
I doubt
but so there was nothing. I thought there was a story that Medicare had to change something in their system.
No.
I've just told a lie for years.
Well, no. I know how you got confused because every time when I had to deal with Centrelink, just ringing up about anything, it used to take about an hour to get to the point. Even once I got the person,
I think that's just like normal now.
That's normal now. But then it wasn't normal because then they couldn't find the people because it's 3 cards, different numbers. It was a complete farce, the whole thing. And they used to find, sometimes they saw, sometimes they didn't see. Their systems weren't very good. So it was just fun and games.
Yep, still the same, I say. Their systems aren't very good.
Tell me about it.
Ed, do you have more comments there?
Yeah, I've got some more questions.
Yeah, let's go. Let's throw some questions. How are you finding this? Are you enjoying yourself?
Yeah, but you're not really... I guess we've fleshed some questions.
Do you want to... You can flesh the questions to yourself.
No, it's going on. We've touched on a few things that
for
I'm
me, this is
in.
public therapy.
Okay. Look, one thing that you've touched on a few times about how the hypocrisy and the way we treated you and everything like that, of course I feel bad about that. When I read your book, it made it very clear, for instance, being kicked out. You were very fair the way you said it. You said, it's our way or the highway. You either do this or you're out. But lest you think, as some in the family even said several years ago, it was just you, nobody else does it. Several years ago, after the Royal Commission stuff, the wife of a rabbi in the community rang your mother to get her advice about exactly the same situation. She told her, listen, I know you've got experience with a lot of kids. We've got the oldest boy is now, we're worried about the influence he's going to have on the other kids. Shall we kick him out? What shall we do? So they were still ringing with this sort of question.
I know you've told me that a few times.
Okay, and what's the problem?
To justify your behaviour.
No.
One, you got to remember, I and my siblings, we all grew up in the same community. Yes, you can find another radical in the community who kicked out their kids, but we all had friends in the community who did not cop the treatment we copped. You were on the radical end of it.
Correct, I agree with that.
And on top of that...
Are you on the radical end of whatever you do?
Hold on, and on top of that... That excuse of you kicked us out because you didn't want us to be a bad influence with regards to religion on the young ones made no sense when you kicked out the youngest one.
That's correct, what you're saying now. But then
why did you do
it? Because already that was the 16th kid.
It was natural. He got it.
No. That was already...
It was out of habit.
Not even out of habit. I was just enough. I can't. You can't take it anymore.
17 kids, you had enough. You know what? In your defence, I would have kicked out everyone at one because 17 kids, I just couldn't do it. I go nuts, but I probably wouldn't have had 17 kids.
Well, that's
self-responsibility.
That is correct.
I
That's
had to
another
snip
question. Yes.
after 2.
Yes,
Snip.
I agree
Let
with
me bring
you.
in a question here.
So, yes.
Someone wanted to know, Zeph, if did you grow up as a typical Aussie kid before you went into the cult? Like, what was your upbringing?
That's
you're
very
telling, I was
interesting.
talking to you
No.
off camera before,
Yes.
and you're talking about. I think you went to
surfer, yeah.
surfer, but you went to university in America, or
And here
Yeah.
and in America, and I finished in Israel. Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up as a normal Australian kid. And in fact, in the 50s and 60s, which is when I was growing up, we didn't have multiculturalism like now. And I suffered at school because I was in a very WASP area, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant area, and my skin is slightly olive, but enough if you're in completely white kids, I stood out, and I was bullied very badly at school, and I suffered from that. So I wasn't part of the community where we lived in Northbridge. Because in those days, not just Jews, but I mean, I had a friend later at 19, 20. He had a girlfriend who was Greek, and her parents didn't know about him. None of his friends ever met her because it was dangerous for her. It wasn't called honour killings then, but she would have been bashed up badly.
Who's this?
One of my friends that was a neighbour that we used to go surfing together. There was 3 of us.
That she was friends with you, so she was gonna
Not she was friends. He was part of our group, but I never met her because Greeks in those days had exactly the same things, and lots of other immigrant groups as well. You had to marry within the group.
Oh, yeah.
You probably know about that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's
They
still-
were
that's-
preferred,
that's
but
still
then
a
it
thing.
was violently,
Tati,
so-
he not only married someone from his own group, he married someone with the same name.
of course, that's right.
Go on.
Anyway, so I wasn't brought up as a normal Aussie kid.
Yeah.
Because we were encouraged, as all these immigrant groups, in order to keep going in the group, mix with the group. But in our area, there was really only another Jew or two, so that I had no one to mix with there. So I was caught between a rock and a hard place in a way. I didn't fit in anywhere. And in fact, on analysing it many years later, the reason I became ultra-Orthodox was because I found a community. What I was in fact lacking wasn't religion at all, it was community. And I've spoken to a lot of people
That
about
makes
this.
sense.
I'm sorry?
That makes sense.
So in answer to your question, I wasn't brought up normal Aussie, but I afterwards, as I got older, adopted some of the Aussie things. I became a surfer. I had a rowing boat, which I used to love.
Yep.
And all sorts of sex, drugs and rock and roll. That was
Did you
more
identify as Jew as a kid? Like, were you Jewish?
Yeah, I was Jewish, but we did nothing.
But so like almost like a racially Jewish or...
Correct, whatever. That's right. I didn't go to...
But you were
when they
proud
had
to be
religious
Jew.
training. What?
You were proud to be Jew?
Well, a lot of the immigrant groups, including Jews, but not only, they all consider themselves a bit superior. I'm sure, I don't know if your group does, but many immigrant groups...
Can Sri Lankans even?
Sri Lankans are the most superior group.
Okay, well...
You know what? I'm just going to jump in here. Sri Lankans and Southeast Asians, Indians. I know, like, people might not like to hear this, but we run the show in Australia. We're your doctors, we're your lawyers, we're your accountants, and we're your Uber drivers. 7-Elevens. We do everything. So
It's true.
Yeah,
You're
these
Telstra support.
Telstra support, tech support. We scam you on the
Doctors,
phone. We
accountants,
call you and scam you from
accountants
India.
and lawyers, that's Jews as well, but
Yeah,
Jews
yeah.
didn't often, in those days, go to Uber
them,
and stuff
yeah.
like
Tati,
that.
we've got to
So-
talk about some of the positive skills you had. How much Telstra credit do you have?
Well, I don't now because they changed the system, but I got up to $70,000 plus.
Wow.
In
How?
Telstra prepaid
How?
credit.
How?
It was a combination of various different offers they had, and using a mathematical intellect, I combined various of them to get above 70,000. 70,000 credit, which afterwards, when they changed the rules, it got converted into actual money, but not 70,000, much less. But we had free phones, free use of internet and phones for home and business for about 10, 15 years.
Can you tell people? So I remember there was a period.
Hello, Telstra. We love you.
I remember there was a period where to make phone calls, we had to call one phone to another phone.
That's correct.
Can you explain to me
No,
how that worked?
these are all technical things. Don't worry. They're the same.
So we had to call one phone to make a call to outside call, but somehow through this process, just tell me if I'm wrong, through that process, you were not only not paying, you were somehow
Getting money. That's correct. That's correct.
This was back in the day when you had to pay. You had to pay for calls, like for each call or per time or whatever. My dad came up with a system this goes down to your cost of living crisis.
That's right. I was going to bring that up as well. I mean, this sort of thing became important.
Okay.
This guy had a system where making phone
totally
calls,
legal, by the way, legal.
Making phone calls was making money. So, everyone else was tight on making, like, I don't want. Should I call that person? It's a cost of. We don't think about that today because now it's you have
included.
unlimited calls. But back then, every call cost and phones, mobiles was by the minute. He had a system where Telstra paid him to make calls.
They had a plan for a certain amount of time. Where a prepaid plan up to $50. You could earn up to $50 a month. You got 5 cents credit for every minute that someone called you on this plan.
Oh,
that's how it works. So
I
a
see.
combination of that was the basis of the whole thing. But then a combination, how do you make free calls to those numbers to get the free money? So I worked out a way of doing it. At one stage, I had about 40 or 50 SIM cards. Telstra was in my fast dial. They used to get things screwed up.
Yeah.
The TIO was also my best friends. I had millions of arguments with Telstra. I always won, except once I think I might have lost.
what did you lose? Were you actually wrong, or did you give up?
No. I never took them on
When
if
you
I wasn't
lost,
right.
when did you lose? I've never.
I didn't get the extra thing that I was asking for, whatever it was.
This explains a lot when I'm listening to these conversations.
What, because
Avi as well.
Which bit? How does it compare?
No. Just his challenges and his legal challenges and so on.
Yeah.
There you go.
You're going to go get what you rightfully deserve.
Because of that funny question, I'll tell you another little funny thing about how naive I was. I had at about age when I was a surfer, I was wiry and very muscly, but very thin. I was very light and thin. Once I had a friend, in those days, discotheques, people used to just rent a hall on a Friday night or a Saturday night and invite, 600, 700 people, and that was called the discotheque. You'd bring in a good band. So I once had this friend in Newcastle, and he did this, and his security backed out at the last minute. So he rang me, can I do it? I was very flattered that he's asking me. So, all right, I'll do it. I didn't know anything. I couldn't fight. I didn't have any capabilities of anything at all. So I got there and I thought, Newcastle, even today, one of my son-in-laws he did his training in the Hunter area a lot, so he saw people bashed, even just a few years ago, with metal rods and stuff like that. It was a really rough area. And I'm there as the bouncer. There's about 600, 700 people there on a Friday or Saturday night. And I saw what's going on. Anyway, I just acted very cool. And the rumour went round the room that because I'm so wiry and thin and not a big guy, he's a super black belt in karate. That's the rumour that went round the room. I didn't have a bit of trouble that night. Yeah. Everybody listened to me just with talking. And I could have been killed that night. That's the most scared I've ever been in my life, I think.
So really? You've had 17 kids and that's the most scared?
No, but I get his point. Like, talking is a gift.
Gift of the gab.
I had no. It wasn't that I was brilliant. I had no alternative. What could I do? I couldn't fight. What could I do?
Talking to the mic. Talking to the mic.
It was just very funny. That goes to the question of, is that normal Aussie? Well, not.
Well, some. There are Aussies that that. That's personality.
Yes.
Are there more questions there?
Let me just pull it up. Give me a second.
You got to meet Rukshan's dad. Have I even met your dad?
No, I don't believe so.
Why are you hiding him?
I'm going to hide him until we bring him on the podcast.
I'm almost sure that
does he talk with an accent?
He does a little bit, yes.
Oh, we're going to have your dad here?
Who said he's got that sort of accent?
Sri Lankan.
All right, I got another question.
Not Sri Lankan.
Have you ever contemplated to live in Israel permanently? And
he moved there.
Yeah, we after I got married, we got married in Israel. We met in New York 3 times, then got engaged, set the wedding date. She went back to prepare everything, and a month or 2 later, I came over. This is 73, late 73. I was on my way back to start the university year in March to finish my degree in Australia. Having started it in Australia, gone to MIT and Princeton, and then I was going to finish it in Australia. But I liked Israel, and I liked it, so we decided to stay on in Israel. We asked the cult leader, and we got permission to stay on in Israel, and we stayed there 10 years, but then I left. I didn't want to live there anymore. I liked the good bits of it, but it was at that stage we had 8 kids already, and I couldn't make it. On a professional salary with a university degree, working in computers, I couldn't make a go of it financially, and that was the basis of moving to Australia.
But now you're settled here. This is Australia.
Oh, yeah. We went back to live in Israel after the whole thing exploded and being shunned and the Royal Commission and everything. But I didn't want to go and live there. That was my ex-wife didn't want to be in Australia anymore after what happened. And so we went there. But eventually we got divorced, and I'm living here.
Is there still migration from Israel to Australia? Is that like a thing? Like, you know?
Oh, now I believe there may well be in the next few months or years.
Okay.
Because of what's going on over there. It's not simple. Look, I'm not... Sorry?
What is going on over there?
Well,
I don't know if I opened a can of
a very
worms.
strong right-wing government, and some of the things they're doing are extreme. I'm not saying they're wrong, but... And Israel's always been very extreme. The left was in power till the 70s, and that means for nearly 30 years. And when the right came to power, they're not the right of today, much more mellow than that. They somehow felt that they'd been robbed of their rightful inheritance, the left, because they'd been in power non-stop. And they've never really adjusted to the fact of the right. So a lot of what you see there is now historical things that are coming to a head, either from the grandparents of the kids that are doing it now or whatever it is. But it's a bit of a disaster situation.
Are you guys on the same page on issues to do with Israel?
I don't know. We talk about it sometimes.
I think we're reasonably much. We both like Israel. We both want it to succeed, and we both. I certainly don't agree with everything they're doing, but I'm not as crazy as some of what the Western media talk about. They don't look at things.
Yeah, I
context.
think nowadays I have a much more balanced view than I probably had 10 years ago. And I think especially after COVID, I think I can see both sides even. I'm a lot more open to listening even to the Palestinian perspective.
Yeah.
But I think the mainstream media here and people on the left in general are just unwilling to even listen to and entertain the idea that the other side, so the Jews or the Israelis, have any right to be in Israel at all. So,
and that's totally counterproductive what they're doing. They don't. I don't know if they realise it or not.
I don't think they care. It's like most issues. It's like most issues. I think that you recognise that when it comes to the conversation around Israel, and that's what I've always found so funny about the Jewish community, is that Jewish institutions, like all the organisations in Caulfield, they're so conservative when it comes to Israel, but then they're so woke about everything else.
Yes.
And they don't understand exactly how they behave in regards to every other issue, things like free speech, exactly how they behave is how everyone else behaves about Israel. And they don't understand. They're sitting there trying to apply logic to the argument. And you go, dude, look in the mirror. Look in the mirror. You behave exactly the same way on every other woke agenda. But when it comes to Israel, you're conservative because it's about self-preservation. I can see both sides. And I served in the army, and I've seen the bullshit that comes from that.
I served as well.
What did you do in the army?
1 week.
1 week.
And I was warned, shut up during basic training because you are going to get kicked out and put in jail. That's what I was told. Like people that saw me there in the basic training, they warned me if I didn't shut up, I was going to get kicked out.
By the way, I saw in the comments, somebody pulled you up. They said there's no such thing as a super black belt. How did you get a rumour started about you that you're a super black belt?
I was just using a turn of phrase. They thought I was just the highest black belt that there is.
There is only black belt.
Are you certain about that?
I don't know. It depends what art.
It depends what art.
I
Maybe
guess.
Kung Fu does have it and the other one doesn't have it. I don't know.
Right,
They just
guys,
thought I was...
Whoever's calling out my dad, fact checking him, shame on you.
Maybe it's
This is the
Ari-
man that created a superstar. My 10 brothers.
We're going to need a fact check there, I think.
No, but there's nothing to fact check. I'm not saying that it was I used the turn of phrase.
Well,
Be careful. This is the internet. Everything you say, any wrong symbol, like what I'm doing right now, that's going to be frozen, and somehow that's going to be a white supremacist symbol.
Well, let me ask you, Seth, are you proud of your son today?
Yes.
The man he is? Because
Absolutely.
you probably you see him a lot on
And I, in fact,
online.
wrote to him and his wife
Yeah.
after I read the book and after it was I said, I'm very proud of you. I'm almost certain that I did write that as a text.
I know you're
to
proud.
your
You know how
honour.
I know you're proud? You know how I know? Because the sales in South Yarra area of the book is a lot brighter than anywhere else.
Are you for real?
No.
No, I don't.
No, because
It
you
could
tell
be.
every,
I know. Well, God, I did.
You talk. One thing about you is you wear your heart on your sleeve. So it is very easy to read how you feel about something or somebody. So if you like a dish,
It's the best.
we know it's. We
It's the
joke in the
best.
family. This is the best dish you've ever made. If you like a person, if you like a night, if you like and also it comes the other way. If a dish is not so great, you've got no qualms in letting the person who cooked
Depends
it.
who the person is. I can assure you I've shut up before.
I think
You're
he
selective,
might
mate.
he might think he's being diplomatic, but to the rest of the world, it's quite easy to read. Which I think is which he wants me to pour more wine.
A drop.
We're cheating here tonight. I had to self-medicate to make this a safe space for us. Here you go.
Thank you.
We've never stopped a podcast to pour a glass of wine.
And I hope viewers out there watching at home, you're enjoying this podcast session. It's not every day, I think, you get to have the father of one of the hosts of a podcast on to hear about him. So I think it's really fascinating and interesting. And the reason I asked you whether you're proud of Avi is obviously
I actually am.
you see all the negative stuff that is said about Avi. I don't know if you see it or not. If you look into
I don't
it,
really see it.
You don't see it.
I only see the people coming up to him in the street that I'm just shocked.
Well, there's a lot
Just people from here and from there. The first time I ever went out with him, it was after I stopped keeping kosher. Suddenly we went out. They invited me out. We went to.
I made him eat pig.
He didn't make that. That is a misrepresentation. I asked for a bacon and cheese pizza or something like that.
I think I took a photo and I put it in the group and I got in trouble.
After I swore you not to post it that time. Yes.
Yep.
Does that sound familiar in any way, shape, or form?
I filmed him eating pig and I put it in the family group.
Yeah, he'll do
All right,
that.
go on.
That was-
So what happened? What were you
Having
saying?
promised that he wouldn't.
Yeah.
I did not promise that I
If he
wouldn't.
promises he won't do it, he'll most likely do it.
No, hold on. I did not.
100%.
I did not promise I didn't.
Yeah, I said you must not do this. Okay.
No.
And you didn't say no.
Yeah, I didn't say no, but I didn't promise that I wouldn't. I just say quiet.
Okay, well, whatever. I assumed shtika kahidah. That means there's a
I think my siblings deserve the right to know
there's a
that.
theological concept in Judaism that if you shut up, it means you're agreeing. And in fact, that's known in English as well. What you're prepared to walk by is what you agree with. So
Yeah.
Okay, so
Fair
go on.
point.
What were you saying? So you noticed when people were walking up to me that day?
yeah, I was
That's all
just
you know.
shocked. I was absolutely like it was just left, right, and centre.
But do you find it funny that people online, they often talk about, my personal life. They always talk about my personal life, and some of it I talk about in the book. But when they're discussing my personal life, because they know me so well, they often bring up our disagreement from years ago, which was quite public. But
it was vicious. I mean,
it was
for a
vicious.
while.
But the funny thing is, they always talk about so they'll post on there, even his own family disowned him, and they don't realize that I think in our family, I'm probably the one that gets on best with the most people. Like I get on well with everyone.
You're up there with whoever. Yeah,
I
okay,
literally
yeah.
get. I'm close to everyone.
Yeah.
Even my
Yes.
sibling that I for a long time didn't. I'm close to everyone. And these people, they try to as a point to make that as to what such a bad person I am that even his own family disowns him, and I just chuckle.
Yes, look, in fact, recently a lot of people have actually commented about how close the siblings are to each other. When push comes to shove and important things are needed, they do pull together very nicely. And a lot of them have very good relations. I mean, it's a big family and it's scattered in four or five different cities. Well, Israel I count as one, but then you've also got Miami, New York, not anymore, and then Sydney and Melbourne.
Cities in New York.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. So it's really 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 5 separate places, if I count Israel as well.
And we're pretty close.
I mean, now exactly a couple of them were overseas, my eldest daughter and that, and they're all together. They have a great time.
Yeah.
They really do.
No, I think it's amazing because my father has 10 siblings.
Right. So you know a bit of it.
Yeah. So, and then there's lots of cousins and they've had a lot of kids. And it's like, and especially the older you get and when they start having kids and stuff, this big, massive family unit.
Yep.
It's like its own little community in a way, right?
Yeah. Oh, it's good when you're older. Not when I was younger, I hated it. Hated it. It was horrible, but no, it was horrible.
I mean, that's in the book. You do bring it up there where you wanted to be the only kid.
I think
you used to say that at the time. I remember it was a bit shocking, but
yeah, but now I actually think like I wouldn't swap it for anything. I think having that many siblings, and you're right. Whenever there's any issue, and even my book, I found that interesting. When I put out my book, everybody straight away ordered a copy, and I was kind of
kids.
Everyone did, yeah.
Really, that's so
and they were just posting photos in the WhatsApp group,
really,
of the book coming. And I found that, like, when there's a disaster, obviously, when something happens in the family and everybody comes together, you expect that, like you would expect that in any normal family, and you can understand that because that affects people emotionally. But my book, and they were all excited.
But some of them would have had a bit of trepidation, I imagine.
Maybe, but everyone was kind of excited.
Maybe they thought you're keeping tabs. They just didn't want to deal with it later on. It's like, oh, I bought the book. I mean, that's why I bought the book.
You bought the book?
I was just like, I have to buy this book. I have to get it. I have no choice. Otherwise, I'll never hear the end of it. And he probably won't give me a free copy, which he didn't. So I bought the book.
I finally bought my dad a copy. I bought my dad a copy tonight.
Oh, amazing.
But I'd already
He's read
I
it.
was one of the proofreaders.
Yeah, he was one of the proofreaders.
Thinking I was the best proofreader in the world, but it turns out I missed a lot.
He missed a lot.
Wow.
I was shocked. I put so much faith in him. And then...
But I just don't understand how... by the way, you never sent me the list of the complete things that I missed. Because
I've got more important things in my life to do.
Okay.
But one of the benefits of having a large family is that all of those who bought the book, then when they read it all, each one were competing. Because we're all so competitive, really. No one wants to admit it. Everybody's competing, and I know they were competing because they were all sending me private messages. Did anyone else find this one?
Oh, really? That's very funny.
And I think I found all the mistakes by the end. Now they all want refunds because they got the faulty original copies.
Well, they don't get updated versions.
No, once you buy a book, it doesn't.
It's physical, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe the ebook. So I
E-books.
do here just do some promotion. It is available as an ebook now.
Yeah, ebooks available.
Yeah, so
It's
Rebel from the start.
seriously, not because he's my son. I found it, and some of the comments I read from someone that it's very easy to read and everything like that. These completely true.
Yes, that's true.
And even
I
though
agree.
I had a little bit of trepidation because I didn't know how I was going to be portrayed, but I think it was definitely as good or better than I expected, and I think it was fair. I don't think he whitewashed it, but he didn't focus on the bad. And he and also another son that's an activist, they've both agreed that they're tough, undesirable, shouldn't be upbringing. I'm not claiming, but a side benefit was that both of them are strong enough, very strong to be activists because of what they've gone through.
Well, it's like it was that reel we put out today that I actually think is true. When people ask you, is there things that Neil Mitchell asked in that interview, is there anything you regret in life? And I've got a long list of regrets. But would I go back and change it?
Exactly.
Well, if it meant that I wouldn't be where I am today, then probably not. I would just go through it again. Because I'm happy where I ended up, and on all levels with my own family. I'm super happy. I had a really dark period with my family, and now
Yeah, I think most people are some of their experiences in life. Like you can't get to that stage in your life, whatever you're doing, without going through all those different challenges and experiences.
And then saying, but if it would have been done differently, then I wouldn't be who I am now. And then so...
Of course. No, there's
Look,
a lot of
also, I mean,
truth to
I
that.
would say, because I wouldn't, I mean, I think 17 children is totally unsustainable. It's not, I mean, I got now a son here in Melbourne. They're about to have their third kid. I advise them. They've got 2 happy, good kids, lovely.
Why?
Don't have any more. They did. So
My dad, the father of 17 kids, is
No, because
looking down upon his child.
I didn't
who's
say
having a
looking
firm.
down, looking askance.
I look, everyone that has a kid now, I'm just like, why?
That's
Except
right.
for Rukshan. I'm excited for Rukshan.
Oh, he's having a kid.
He's pregnant.
Oh, okay.
It's the new age thing.
Men can have babies. Didn't you hear that?
Well, we should actually even get onto some political issues as well. Just, I'd love to throw some of the issues that are going around in society today and get your take on it.
Throw it. This is going to be funny because I bet you.
No, because
some whack stuff.
You come from I guess you've seen Australia in a different way to most people.
Yes.
So, and you were talking about
Many different ways.
many
I've
different
said it.
ways, and you're talking about escaping from what you're calling a cult. You're talking about your life growing up as a surfer and all this kind of stuff in the 50s.
He was told it's either the religion or leave home, left home.
Yeah, did
either
all
the
that.
dog or leave home, left
We
home.
went through all of that.
Very
So
similar.
When you think
You
about
changed
that,
your name as well.
That's also correct. That's for a while. Yes, that's correct.
so what do you think today about mass immigration in Australia? So that's an issue that we talk about a lot. We're thinking about a couple of 100,000 people coming into this country.
It's got two sides to it. The whole thing has two sides. Immigration, just for the point of view of economics, I have a bit of a problem with that. But on the other hand, because Australia, I remember where I grew up in Northbridge in Sydney. 5 minutes walk from my house was a big park called Clive Park, where I was able to go on my own and did it a lot into scrub, into bushland, and be on my own in scrub. You can't do that anymore. I've been there once since then, 20 years ago or something, and it's all thinned out and made safe because someone might hurt themselves, whatever it is. And this is what I grew up in, and it's all completely different. And the more people you have here, the less chance there is of doing that because you have to take the space and you don't have the wild space. So that's the side against immigration. On the other hand, we're lucky we're here, and you've got people that really have nothing. I'm not going to go between, really, really poor people that are starving in Sudan or something now. What does it matter if they just want a better life? Ultimately they're dying, or they will die, or they... So I don't have a solution to it.
I understand that, definitely, but does it come to a point like in a country like Australia today? Was this a discussion that was happening back then? Because today people will say, well, what about what's happening to the people here? What was it like back then?
Well, it's totally changed. You couldn't speak. If you spoke a foreign language on public transport, you were looked down upon. People would be almost aggressive towards you. That's changed. So, immigration, we're talking about numbers now. I think we've got a pretty good system here in Australia, at least at certain levels. There are certain sectors of society which I believe the immigration wasn't as good, and they didn't integrate as well, and they don't want to integrate as well. But I think Asians in general have integrated pretty well, and that's a large proportion now. I live next to Melbourne High. I look down over Melbourne High, and I'm elated, and I tell them sometimes, I tell the boys, because the 98% probably are dark-skinned. Melbourne High, Indians and Chinese, a lot of Indians.
Yeah.
And I think it's fantastic. And I've told them, I said, when I grew up, I suffered from having slightly olive skin. I got bullied at school. And you guys are the majority now. I think it's fantastic.
We're pushed into it. Like even our parents make us sit those exams, and they push us towards
they're still
it.
able to do it. It's a selective high school, and they're able to do it. So I think these are all just indicators of how things have changed in Australia. I think it's been wonderfully successful. I know there's places and there are certain immigrant groups that haven't adjusted.
But not even the immigrant groups. Like, can we handle it? Do we have the
That's what I'm-
infrastructure?
yeah.
When you're talking about, I know
Okay,
your
you're
example
right.
of the scrubs or whatever, but I think it's a lot bigger than that.
Yeah,
There's
but
a
that would be even without, they haven't paid attention to housing for a long time, not just because of the immigrants.
I know.
Even just for Australians. I mean,
bring-
these people in Lismore that were living on floodplains and everything like that, it was all known by parts of government for a long time, and they did nothing about it. And that was Australians. They're Aussies up there.
but that's the point. If we can't even take care of our own, how can you bring others in to compound the issue? All
Because
you're
you
going to
can
do
look
is
at it in both ways. You can look at it in two ways. You can look at it, how can we deal with more? But you didn't even deal with the people you had to deal with. That means that the
so
problem
how can
is
you
your
look at the other way.
systems.
Yeah.
Well, no.
So fix the system, then talk about bringing people in.
It's going to take a long time to fix the system anyway.
So what are you going to do? Compound the problem by bringing more people in?
Well, you've really got to, if you want to do it properly, you've got to go into the economics of it properly, and you need
but you
real
said you don't
economists.
like the economics of it. You didn't believe in the economics of it.
When?
At the beginning of this thing, you said the argument of economics of it. You don't.
I didn't want to get involved, but I say you have to look at it. If you want to really analyse the thing rationally, you have to also look at the economics. And do I really know what it is? No. I know that it's going to place a bit of a strain on housing, no question. But on the other hand, other countries are now having a big problem with an ageing population and not enough young people to support the old people. So it's not simple. Australia's setting itself up quite nicely, thank you, for the next 30, 50 years.
You know, the good thing about governments is they find the right economists who can give them the exact figures.
And that's why I
need.
said I don't know. I'd like to speak to some real economists and let them really
the experts.
talk.
You know what I've learned through COVID is trust the experts as much as you trust your.
Although it turns out that Phil Lowe was actually.
I don't want to say anything.
It turns out he wasn't quite so wrong. It looks like he actually is
Some
respected.
of the things that he did.
Some of the things he did.
Yeah.
I mean, saying what he said was ridiculous, but the people believing him was ridiculous as well.
Yeah.
How could anybody with the slightest knowledge of the way things work would have known that he couldn't possibly know what was going to be in a couple of years? It just
he's
doesn't-
kind of been scapegoated when you look at it today.
That's what I think.
He's
Exactly.
been the punching bag for
Yes.
the government, for everyone.
For everyone, that's right. I feel sorry for the guy in a way. And it turns out his replacement is really just a continuation of him anyway. So
Of course.
anyway,
That's always
what else immigration, what else?
Look,
Let's go. Other political. What's other things that are happening now?
immigration. Okay, that's one. And one of the things that we're talking about a lot today is around patriotism in Australia. So as an immigrant in Australia, I'm very patriotic. And I feel like when I grew up here in the 90s, we weren't taught this, the shame of this country. We weren't taught to hate this country.
Yes.
You know, I'm very proud Australian. I sing the anthem. I love the flag. I have all this in a part of my growing up in this country, and I fondly remember these things.
Yes.
But today, it's very different. And during when you grew up here, was that similar to what I'm describing, or was that something you didn't really
what is
experience?
today? I don't understand what you're comparing it to.
Today
I don't know.
it's become naughty. The Australian flag is almost a symbol of racism today. That's what they're trying to paint
terrible.
it
That's terrible.
Were you proud to be in Australia at your age back in the 50s, 60s?
Yes, and I'm much prouder now. I reckon Australia, I've lived in 3 countries. I've lived in the US, lived and worked in the US, or studied in the US. I've lived in there and in Israel and in Australia. America is the pits. I wouldn't want to live there in any way, shape or form. Israel.
Where did you live in America?
New York State.
But New York State's.
Well, it doesn't matter, but that's... I
You
got
got
enough of...
Texas. You got to have some guns, and then let's talk. All right, go on.
And Israel was good, but Australia is the best they've got the balance as good as can be, and you can see it really well now in the world. You've got a lot of right-wingers coming, but Australia's managed to keep some sort of balance of government interference and letting you do your own thing. I reckon, I know, a lot of your audience won't agree.
Not my audience. Anyone with who sees reality. So you're retired. For you, I think a lot of the things don't affect you anymore. So you don't see the pain that people feel. And you don't see the direction that the government's
understand
going.
very well what's going on with inflation. I see it. I buy food. I understand all this stuff. I'm still saying, do you know what's going on in England and in America and other places?
So you're saying we're better off?
I still say that
comparatively?
compared with other people, they're not perfect. No government. But I reckon one good thing about Australia is the balance between government and... I know, modulo all these objections, the balance between government interference and private lives, I think is pretty good. And we don't have this... huge fight between left and right that you have in some other places in the world. As much as they're fighting, it's not. I mean, I was worried about Labor coming to power, but I reckon they haven't been so bad.
That's a good question though, because I wonder, was my political view formed through nature or nurture? Like, did we grow up? You were probably a Liberal voter when we grew up.
I was a Liberal voter, and I was very right wing in my politics.
Yeah,
very right wing.
So that's where I got
like I would have had then, and it's still a question I ask, and I'm not dogmatic about it. But if you were in a situation in a country, I won't say which country, whatever, and you know that you're going to be shelled now from another country. In those days, I would have said, if I know it's going to come from that town, you guys stop it or I'm going to kill the whole town. I would have found that quite reasonable. Now I'd be a bit more circumspect. I'd think a bit more. But there's a lot of people that do think like that. If you got an enemy and they're going to doesn't matter, we'll wipe you out completely. So I've changed a lot in that respect.
He doesn't want to mass murder anymore. He's chilled out, my dad.
That's a good change.
He's really
change,
chilled
that's a
out.
good change.
I also, with respect to the Palestinian situation, they're working on the wrong level of things. They have to work on, in my opinion, personal interactions. We have to be able to sit down and have cups of coffee together on a widespread thing, not just one. I know of people, I won't go into too much detail, but there's people on both sides that you can't have a cup of coffee with the other side. And as long as you think like that, anything they're doing is just going to be a joke.
Yeah, of course.
It's not realistic.
I have a bit of experience with this because in Sri Lanka we have
between the Tamils and
we actually had a civil war.
Yes,
which had obviously the impacts of that is still ongoing, and people have different views of this. 25 years.
Yes,
almost 300,000 people killed apparently. Yep. I'm not sure on the exact number, and suicide bombings. Long before there were suicide bombings in the Middle East.
Yes,
Sri Lanka had the world record for suicide bombings, and it was actually very much crafted by the what they're called Tamil Tigers. They were the pioneers of these kind of suicide bombings. So we had this conflict, but what I always found interesting was when I'm in Australia, I have Tamil friends.
Yes.
And we're going to school together. We're doing, programs and events together. And here, Tamil and Sinhalese people are marrying each other.
Yes.
So I see the benefits of a country like Australia, and I see people having cups of coffee, growing up together, doing these things. And I always wonder if we can do it in this country, why can't in our countries?
We're far enough away.
Right.
And you don't have the same strictures on you as you do there.
That's right.
Where you're fighting about the same resources and stuff. Based on exactly on what you're saying, how you got friends there, the Welcome to the Waks Family, before it was released on SBS or ABC, I forget which was it was shown for a couple of weeks in a private cinema or something, a limited release of 2 weeks. One of those new art cinemas or something. It was booked out the whole time, and I think they had to actually extend it. And I had a then friend who was a psychiatrist, and he went along to one, and he had people, I think, sitting behind him or in front of him, a Palestinian family. And they watched the video and they loved it. And they said to him, they got to talking a bit, and he said, if all the Israelis or if all the Jews were like that, speaking about us and our attitudes, then, everything would be good.
Little did they know that you were willing to bomb their whole village.
Anyway, I'm just saying what they said. I'm saying what he repeated to me, what they said.
Yeah.
But the idea was, and they said in Australia, that they made that comment as well. In Australia, you could, and I've seen it, I've noticed it. Our greengrocers at one stage were Syrians or Alawites, all sorts of things. And they were, in fact, one of them told me, Alawites, they're a sect of Islam in Syria or Lebanon as well. And his family told him, trust the Jews, don't trust the Syrians.
Yeah, but when it comes to these historical conflicts, or these historical grievances, now we're seeing that playing out in Australia with the Voice to Parliament.
Yes,
with Indigenous Australians and some people, feeling like they're not being represented in this country in a meaningful way, even though Australia is a fantastic and wonderful country. That history is there, and it's very hard for some people in the community to overcome that history. What's your take on something like that, particularly from Israel Palestine? That's an age-old conflict going back thousands of years. The way that I see it, and in the question that we're grappling with in Australia. It's not as complicated as that, but it touches on some of the same issues, doesn't it?
You're right, and I have. I don't know if you should say these views here.
This is the opposition podcast, so you can oppose yourself. Go on.
Well, I mean, the concept of definitely there was oppression and that they've lived. I agree with all that, and things have to be righted. But the idea of one thing that annoys me is seeing people that don't look Aborigine to me being the Aboriginal spokesman. I would perhaps like a colour chart that you'd have to be at least a certain colour to be.
Rukshan would be at the top of the colour chart.
He could be. That's right. Although often some of the spokesmen they're obviously not Aboriginal. They've got Islanders in them or other groups in them as well.
Many of the ones that are in front of the TV all day and all night, shouting the loudest, are often more white than they are black.
But you're not even allowed to mention the question, and I want to mention the question because I started out with The Voice until I started hearing them talking about it. The concept was great, but then when I realised the way they're talking and where it's going or not going because we don't know, I'm really opposed to it now.
So you were pro The Voice at first?
Well, I didn't go out thinking about it, but I thought it sounded reasonable.
So you would have voted yes to it at the beginning?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And now, but that's pretty standard, I think, with Australia. The polls show that because I think in the beginning the polls were in their favour.
Yeah, it might have been 80% or something.
I don't think it was ever 80. It might have been
75
60 or.
Yeah,
I think it was
as a concept, when it's introduced to Australians, most people are for it until they start to look into what it means.
That's it.
And like you said, until you actually start listening to what I would claim a lot of the activist class to speak about.
That's
it.
right.
Politicians, they're going to say things you like, you
That's
don't
right,
like,
that's right. No.
whatever. But when you hear the activist class talking about it, you kind of get what they're really saying. You got to listen to them.
But even apart from that now, actually thinking about what it means is also a bit of bullshit because I don't like the idea now of this is introducing racism into Australia in a very basic way.
A lot of people disagree with you, and I agree with you. I think it's, introducing a type of racism.
Yeah.
So you have that view as well.
100%. I'm seeing Australia going in a different direction. Like I told you, I love it. Not everybody would realise that, but having the background I've got, seeing Indian and Chinese guys in Melbourne High, I love it. It makes me feel good because I realise how far we've come in Australia. To me, that's the real thing. A selective high school is filled by these guys. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, look, I get it because I look at Israel or even Sri Lanka, countries that are thousands of years old history-wise.
Yes.
But we have issues. But somehow this country, Australia, 200 years old, 250, whatever.
Yes.
And it's this amazing place that people from all around the world flock to because they're having problems in their countries where they do have a voice.
Yes.
I'm just saying.
Yes.
I bring this point up a lot. Just because there is someone that looks like you and advocates for you and is your country people doesn't necessarily equate to the best solutions and the best life for someone to grow up in. That's why countries like Australia, I think, work. Yes. Because there's something else here. There's something else that's magical about Australia.
Well, and part of it is, to go back to your earlier question, I believe part of it is in this whole climate debate, one word I haven't heard discussed ever, correct me if I'm wrong, is population size in general in the world. Because there's no doubt that reducing population is going to make a very big...
hold on, I've made that argument. I've asked...
Well, I haven't heard you...
I've asked climate change activists if you want to come to zero emissions, you can do it by ending your own life.
Yeah. By the way, one of your siblings has said...
That's the point he's making.
One of your siblings has said, in fact, now, even though in the Bible... homosexuality is forbidden and the worst thing and everything like that. Today it should be good with climate change and the Bible itself.
So do you want to depopulate the whole world?
I'm not saying the whole world, but Are
you from the WEF?
Yeah, are you from the WEF?
You look a bit like Klaus Schwab when I think about it.
What's WEF?
So Klaus Schwab...
He's playing dumb now.
He's playing dumb.
I don't know what WEF is.
So do you want... Hold on.
World
Economic Forum. World Economic Forum. So they believe in depopulation for climate... They're advocating what you're talking about.
For many, because I'm saying...
Do you want to eat bugs?
That without lessening the population, no one will ever grow up with the type of thing that, at least in the city, they won't be able to grow up knowing what I knew, being able to go and forage in actual
Yeah, but that's
bush.
not because of climate.
No, but
Do
that's
you know
because
you
of
can
population.
go move to the country?
Yeah. But I said
In the city,
I
you
said
can move, but
specific-
you can open. But the city back then is like what country towns were. What country towns are now is like what the city was back then. So you can just
except medical things, and as you get older, you think about other things. So it's not so simple. I mean, I had to have an operation a couple of weeks ago. It wouldn't.
So you want to depopulate the world so that people.
I want it to be discussed. I didn't say depopulate. I said it's something I
Doesn't
haven't
Elon
heard.
Musk? Does Elon Musk? What does he believe? I get confused. He believes in more. He thinks
More
we're,
people.
He
More
thinks
people.
we're underpopulated and we're going to die as a species.
Yeah, he's saying
Yeah, because he's looking at something else.
He's saying
That's
more
right.
people should have children because
Yeah, because we're going to
obviously
die as a
we're aging.
species.
Well, whatever.
We're going to become an aging population that's not going to. But if you do the maths,
Yes.
that's what's going to happen. That's a problem that they had in China.
Yep. Look, I don't see any. I mean,
I love how the guy that had 17 kids wants to depopulate the world.
Makes sense,
This
actually.
is
one
the way
second,
we
I
need
said to you, it's unsustainable. I said that. You started the conversation about 17 kids, and I'm saying it's unsustainable.
I just-
I never understand how various countries give actual bonuses. I think it's only a political thing to have more children.
Daniel's calling you out on fact check. I can bring that up on the screen. Daniel actually lives
What did he say?
he
Where is
lives
he?
in the country.
I'm not saying no medical services. Come on, that's not what I said.
Well,
Okay, I've got a friend that lives up on the
Daniel.
Atherton Tablelands up north, Queensland. And so he's got Cairns near him, which has good, but he knows. We just spoke a couple of days ago. I'm not going to give any clues who the person is. And he knows that for certain medical things, he has to go to a big city. And if someone has a chronic condition or something like that.
Back when you grew up, I bet you they didn't have those medical services because they didn't exist.
Correct.
So,
Okay, yeah, but
so
now-
you want the best of everything. You want to have 17 kids. You want to preach to the world to have. He does work for the WEF.
I'm telling you, you look a bit like
you
Clash.
know what they do at the WEF? They fly in there on their private jets and they tell
Yeah,
us
I know,
that we
okay.
shouldn't go anywhere. We shouldn't even drive cars. You have 17 kids and
Yes,
say we
okay.
should depopulate
Okay,
the world.
this goes to address another thing about some of the kids. Some of the kids are very angry. A discussion we had earlier.
Yeah.
I brought them up this way. You hypocrite! Now you're saying this. People, all religions speak about change as being a wonderful thing. As long as it's change in the direction they approve of. But the concept of changing, all religions have it as a good thing. So
right.
I'm allowed to
So
change.
if you could go back in time, you wouldn't have 17 kids?
Absolutely.
Which kids would you wipe
Here we
off?
go. Yes, that's what Uncle Edie used to ask. Which kid don't you want? Tell me which one. It doesn't work like that. But I'm saying, as if I'm looking now rationally and making a plan for my life, would I have 17 kids? No. Would I have any kids? Probably none.
Based on-
Today, anyone that has a child, they should think very carefully what they're bringing into the world and what world they're bringing the kid into. Seriously.
But
I don't know what's going to be in another 10 years, even 5 years.
but
Things could be very, very ugly.
if you want to depopulate the family, would you go by carbon footprint? Would you look at which one has the bigger carbon?
No. This is
I
silly
think-
details. I'm allowed. I had 17 kids. Okay, I made a mistake.
Which ones were the mistakes? Is what I'm trying to work
It
out.
doesn't work like that. Just the total number is a mistake.
No, I get you. I get what you're saying.
How do you make 17
Wait,
mistakes?
one second. Ask him. He understands and he's not emotionally involved
Fool
with
me
you.
once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 17 times in a rubber house. How do you do that?
We need subtitles for these.
It's not even Hebrew. That's Arabic.
I don't even understand what he said. I'm not sure he does either.
Daniel, who lives in the regions with medical capabilities in
Just
the
one,
region,
I'm
says
done.
he has one.
I'm
He's doing
done.
his part.
Right.
He's done.
Daniel, good on you, mate. How old's this guy?
Daniel's a good bloke. He works for Rebel News.
Oh, really?
That's what. Yeah, I know who we're talking to here.
Oh,
We're having
okay.
basically a call. He's actually interested in tonight. I don't think he's ever logged in. He's always watched it in work hours because he has to. But tonight, I think he's tuned in because
Where
of
is
you.
he? In Australia or in
He's
Canada?
in Australia. Yeah, he's in Australia. He's on the Australian team. He's a good bloke. You should all follow him on Twitter, Daniel Delhunty. He's actually underrated on Twitter. I sometimes steal his ideas. His tweet. You know when you see a good tweet and you rewrite it yourself to make it seem like an original thought?
I've never done that.
You always do that. I always see my tweets recycled
Bullshit.
on your feed, you liar.
Bullshit. I think it's the opposite way around. All right, I'm gonna
Thoughts on climate change.
I'm gonna look up some more questions. Just
We probably
wrap up with
we
some
need
questions.
to wrap
We're
up.
probably
Yeah,
You definitely have some interesting questions.
yeah.
there,
Bring
I
him
must
up on
say.
screen. Yeah,
I'm trying to find.
you're trying to find what changed, old boy. What?
Thoughts on the
Why
right
do
of
you?
the people to bear arms? All right.
Are you going to bring up a couple of questions?
I'm just trying to think what's a good one.
Rukshan, this is Tati. Do you see? By the way, I call him Tati for those who didn't realise. What does Tati mean? It means
Dad
Dad
in
in
Yiddish.
Yiddish.
Tati, yeah. So we say tati in Sinhalese.
You say
Really?
Tati?
tati, yeah.
Do you call your dad Tati?
Tati, yeah.
Really?
That is there's a lot
That's
of
weird because Abba.
there are theories that Sanskrit and stuff is related to Hebrew.
It all
actually.
comes
It's
from
not,
everything comes from India. Everything, all your stuff is from
Well,
India.
the Jews say from Hebrew, the Indians say
No,
from
because the
India.
Arabs,
Sanskrit,
they all
yeah.
call Abba. Arabs, I think, is also Abba. Or,
Yeah, but this is Tati, not Abba.
No, I know. But Arabs, Hebrew, all that
Yeah,
is.
they've all got AV as the beginning.
But I've never heard another one.
No, but
Tati,
I've heard
except
there's
for
a few other words in Indian, in Old Indian, that are similar to Hebrew words.
Yeah.
I think there is
Sanskrit
some
stuff.
connection somewhere.
Yeah, I hear. There's Avi there. They call people.
Yeah,
they
Avi.
call people.
Yeah.
Avi.
Yeah, Avi's the name.
Oh yeah, I hear Avi, and I'm looking around,
Yeah.
and then
There's too many questions. I'm just trying to figure
Just
out.
take-
What, is this a
Well-
lot of questions for a thing, for a podcast, or it's normal?
No, it's normal.
it's normal.
I think a lot of the questions we've actually already touched on. We've already kind of
all right.
answered,
So I
answered
think
them.
we should probably wrap it up.
Yeah.
Tati, I want
While
to
we're
thank
ahead.
you
All right.
for.
We hardly discussed anything. I thought this is just a prelude. We're not
Prelude,
into
but-
anything.
Do you want to come back?
No, you'll decide that after you see.
Do you want to come back? Did
I'm
you
not
enjoy
against-
tonight?
It's been very pleasant.
The guests
It
have
was-
viewers have really enjoyed the conversation.
Have they really?
Yeah, they've had a good time listening. in.
Usually they're bagging me out the whole time.
Yeah.
But now they had him to do it. Yeah.
like, bag away, guys. Bag away.
Bag away, yeah.
Bag me.
They can bag me. I don't mind.
Why did no one ask? How could you possibly have thrown a little 14-year-old kid out?
They all understand. They know me.
No one judges you for that.
I think this audience.
That's the one question that hasn't been asked, and you reckon there's a reason.
I
It's
think
not.
this audience. Did you ever feel bad about kicking me out at 14?
No. It was a necessary evil. It wasn't good, but I didn't feel a huge conflict. Once different people work different ways emotionally. Once I make the logical decision that something has to be this way and there's no other way of doing it, there's no point in.
Do you remember the day I came back when I talk about it in the book?
No, I sort of half remembered when you said it, and the
And you
way
went and you went to the and you.
I don't remember, but it definitely could have been true.
It's.
I'm sure it was true. I don't deny that it
It's
happened.
funny because the detractors that I've seen online, they say that the whole story is a lie.
Oh, absolutely. That's for sure not true.
No, I find it funny because
I don't
to be able to fabricate my story, there were so many people that were in my life in that
I know.
period. You would have to be so blatant about your life. Like it's funny to even think that these people that hate me just I think they think I'm a lot more capable than I am. Anyway,
You know the old story. If it's between a conspiracy and a fuck up, an F up, it's
he's lost his mind. Go on.
it's go for the F up.
Yeah.
You effed up 17.
There you go.
Well, we'll leave all the double entendres with that one
let
and
me ask
everything
you,
like that.
Would you though, if the perfect opportunity came, would you have one more?
If I found a partner that insisted, I would try and talk her out of it. But if that would be the only reason,
that's preaching depopulation
One second.
have an 18th
Okay, you didn't even let me finish. What was I going to say?
Go on.
Well, I was just going to say that if that was the only thing, I'm still young enough and interested enough that I could get married again. I almost had it with, as you know, the person that you met. And I would do it against my will, but I would do it if that was the only... Well, it would be... Okay.
No, go on. It's funny.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand what you're
Thank
saying.
you.
He's
That's
still
it.
laughing.
He can laugh.
I'm laughing at you, but yeah.
Thank
It was,
you. Good.
somebody's asking 17 children, how many wives? It was one wife. My mother had 17. If you read the book, you would know.
And no twins.
No twins, 20 years pregnant.
And a couple of 2 or 3 miscarriages. That's it. Apart from that.
So after all that, he should literally, Klaus Schwab, if you're watching this, I have the perfect member for you. A man who preaches depopulation, but is willing to have his 18th child. Thank you for being with us, Tati. It was actually quite enjoyable. We'll have to do it again.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Oh,
much.
I've enjoyed myself. This was easy. This
Amazing.
wasn't...
Easy. Next time we'll make
natural.
it.
Natural.
We'll ambush him.
He's actually, you're much more well spoken than Avi. I should have you as my co-host. I think that would go down much better. More intelligent, more knowledgeable. Everything's just better. I don't know how you produced him. I just wanted to get that in there. That should clear.
but I mean, if you read the book, you know how he was born. I mean, we arrived in Melbourne. She was late giving birth. We had to move. We'd sold there, bought here. We drove down. We arrived in the morning. We settled the kids in a bit. We went out at night, leaving a babysitter with them. We drove to Kew to visit a cousin of mine. We drove up in Kew up the steep drive, and it's a physiological thing. The waters broke, and we went straight from there. She went to the toilet, and we went on to Royal Women's where she gave birth. He started life like that.
Wow.
Trouble.
Melbourne.
That's how the book started. I was born the night we moved to Melbourne. But the funny thing is that I think even when he tells the story, he misses some of the most important points.
What are the important points?
You drove in a car, so a 9-seater with 11 people, so 2 adults, 9 kids, packed in the car, left the 9 kids at home.
Well, how do we do that? That's illegal. How do we do that?
Maybe back then it was illegal. Yeah, you broke the law. I don't know if there's a statutory, what's it called, the time that they can get you on that. If not, I'm going to report you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. By the way, for those that want to meet you, and maybe the lucky lady at home, are you going to come to the
what
the
lucky
book
lady at
signing?
home?
The
Which
one
lady are you talking about?
I'm saying all the women now that heard that you're single and available and excited and looking to have another baby.
Those
you're
ones
willing
only
to have another baby. Are you going to come to the book signing event in? Don't say where it is if you know where it is. I don't know.
I've got no idea where it is.
It's close by.
If it's close
on the
by.
27th of August, so Sunday week, are you coming to the book signing?
I've got a...
You're going to have...
What time of day?
7 p.m.
I can do that.
You're going to come? So all the lucky ladies home, for those of you that haven't booked yet, rebelfromthestart.com. Firstly, if you haven't read the book, if you're asking questions about my family and you haven't read rebelfromthestart.com, get the book.
It is well worth reading. I really enjoyed it, and I know almost everything that was there, and I still found it presented in an amazing way.
And he's not even getting commission. This is called
Absolutely not.
Pure love. Willing to lie.
No. It's just a factual impression of what the book was.
I believe you.
Rebel, you read it, so you know it.
believe
Rebelfromthestart.com, and the events are there. So right now we've got Auckland. Rukshan's coming to all 3, Auckland, Wellington and Melbourne.
That's right.
And we're about to list a few other locations in the next couple of weeks. So bookmark that page if it's and we'll hopefully be coming close to you.
I've been to a 90th birthday on that day.
You're going to be on a 90th birthday?
Yeah.
Do you have a friend that's a
cousin, Frida?
Frida's 90.
Yeah, she doesn't want a birthday, but they're making a birthday for her.
Oh, that's nice.
At Ripponley, I think. At the nice place.
Nice. I would come, but we would be flying
You
from
have to
New
be
Zealand.
invited. Are you invited?
Mate, I'd invite myself.
Oh, all right.
Thank you, guys. Next week at 7 p.m. Eastern. What are we?
Australian Eastern Time.
Australian Eastern Time, because we're going to be doing from New Zealand at 9 p.m.
That's right.
Live, we've got Ezra Levant and Chantel Baker on the panel.
So that'll be quite interesting. Hopefully we will not just talk about Avi that day.
We're going to have to, because it's all going to be about the book launch.
Yeah.
I think people are starting to warm up to the idea that this is
Can you guys imagine logging in every week and we just talk about Avi? Like, that's literally the podcast. Every week it's just like, oh yeah, Avi.
You got to change the format.
We got 17 siblings to bring in if we need to, one a week. So it's always about Avi.
We should bring his dad. I vote to bring Rukshan's dad.
I'm not asking for that, but next week definitely.
I'm going to call you Tati.
Tati. We'll be talking about Avi's book. We'll be talking about issues from New Zealand. So join in next week, guys. You can follow along at the opposition.show. That'll have all the episodes up there.
And now we're on all the
we're there.
podcast. You can look it up in the podcast and listen to it anytime.
Yeah. Perfect, guys.
Amazing.
But otherwise, thank you for everyone watching from home. If you're in Melbourne, good night. If you're watching from other parts of the world, either good morning or enjoy the rest of your day. We will see you all next time. Bye.